Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today on episode 53.
Be cautious about and learn about, but at the end of the day, the thing that's really driving everything is human use, right? So everyone got freaked out when emails came in. Everyone got freaked out when, Teslas were on the road, and still a little bit freaked out by Teslas on the road. But at the end of the day, it's just all about how they're used and what kind of barriers we put around them and contain them. So I think things are less scary than they need to be. Everything's a double-edged sword. Like Instagram, great, I can connect with my friends back home. Bad because I'm scrolling all day, right? So everything, it's just about balance and finding that. So I think it's a little, if people are intimidated by it or intimidated because like they think it's very male dominated or things like that, I'm not saying it's not, but it doesn't have to be the big scary thing if you just put yourself out there and try.
Today on episode 53, I'm pleased to announce our guest, Lauren Allison. As the Executive Director and Public Diplomacy Advisor and part of the UK Fulbright Alumni Advisory Council Board, she is someone who is centralized on the nexus between public diplomacy, public policy, and technology, often speaking at Fulbright and other UK-USA events, and her former position of being CEO of #TechMoms, an influential nonprofit in the UK that works to support mothers in becoming more confident of their use in technology. She has a knack for bringing technology and people together. So thank you so much, Lauren, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Aarna. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be here. A lot of my work really centralizes about making technology more accessible to people. So explaining things in much easier to understand ways, because I think things are sometimes overcomplicated. So that's one of my big passion projects.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, there's like so much troubles with kind of bridging what technology is to people who don't know what it is. And I'm so happy that you're, bridging it.
Yeah, no, it's really good whenever you can see the impact of explaining something simpler. I'm sure you maybe have it with older relatives or, friends that don't have experience in certain technologies, but whenever you're able to share it and explain it in like an easier way, it's always great to see that impact and that effect.
Yeah. So my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
So I tried my hardest not to go anywhere near IT or tech. So obviously I failed in that one, but I really wanted to go into, I love words, and that's kind of what I do focus on now, and it's the kind of communication side of IT. But I love words and I wanted to be in more kind of politics speech writing. So I initially started out as a speechwriter and researcher in the Northern Ireland Assembly. So I worked in politics back in Northern Ireland where I grew up. And I then eventually went on to ended up sort of working with politicians, research organizations. I went to the University of St Andrews in Scotland to do international relations, and I studied at Sciences Po, which is a kind of a political diplomacy school in Paris, and I did a little stint in Singadunum University in Belgrade. And that was all focused on international relations, speech writing, all of those different types of things. And then I ended up getting a Fulbright scholarship to come study a professional master's in something called public diplomacy in the US. And I was at USC in Los Angeles, where I now live. And public diplomacy really is looking at how you can influence, interact, and engage with groups of people. So it's kind of like public relations, but it's more about engagement and developing programs and meaningful ways to interact together. And I loved that. And then I ended up going to work for a tech organization and helping them build like youth programs and online learning programs. And then in 2015, I decided to go out on my own. And I started doing consulting for different IT companies, helping them build engagement programs for their employees helping them engage with their, say, for instance, their clients in the case of IT companies that needed to explain what's two-factor authentication or new changes in their IT systems and things like that. And then in I believe it's 2019, I was hired as the CEO of a charity in the UK called Tech Mums, which you mentioned earlier. And so that was an organization that works with mums to help them become more familiar with technology and confident with it so that they can use it in their everyday lives. So we taught mums of having email, staying safe online, keeping your kids safe online. We then did a little bit of, how to shop online or get good deals or things like that. But then the whole way through to the basics of app design, web design, and coding. And so we taught mums what's an algorithm and, linked that back to things that people would be familiar with in their daily life, like a recipe. Like an algorithm is a recipe, basically. And you have to put the steps in certain orders. You can't, cook the onion before you chop it. And we taught things like loops. So you chop or cook something until it becomes translucent or is smaller and so that was really fabulous. I did that for about 2 years and I loved it. It was really exciting. And now I mostly just work with tech companies, helping them build communication strategies and communications plans.
No, I love that. I mean, what you've been doing has really helped so many people kind of thrive in technology. And even though you didn't want to actually start in like technology, you actually ended up in it, which is kind of a funny story, which is relevant to mine as well. I actually never wanted to get into technology because I thought my dad was doing some really boring stuff and he was a software engineer at that time. But then just learning how to code and just being really fascinated by it kind of drew me in. So I'm really happy that we have that same story.
Yeah. Both my parents left school, I think around 15 years old. They had different jobs, and then my parents they had their own computer, like IT company. So they not only like sold computers and fixed them, but also provided what's called managed services. So basically providing technology to companies who don't have their own inside IT person. And so my parents had that. So my whole life I was like, oh, that's fine, but I'm going to do my own thing, And every single job I've had, even in the research institutes I've worked in as a researcher, I've ended up working on their machine learning projects. And this is back 2012, 2013. Ended up working on kind of, any of their machine learning, AI stuff. So it's no matter how far I tried to wriggle away, I think because, and it's probably the same for you, because you have a parent that is so involved in it and explains it to you in simple ways when you're a kid, it's like a different language that you have in your brain, and it makes everything so much easier. So it's always a benefit to have had a parent that had that, which is why, again, Tech Mums was so great, because we're trying to not only help the mums, but also, their parents or their kids, it's like a knock-on effect.
Perfectly said. And my next question for you is, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Yes. So the first one I would say is, don't worry about what you want to be, as in don't worry about what the job title is or what the position will look like, because the workplace changes so quickly that unless you have a very specific thing in mind, like a pilot, right? There's hopefully, maybe, who knows, self-flying planes, but there's always going to be pilots, right? Or someone who needs to know how the plane flies. But think about the things that you love and the things that you want to do instead, rather than just focusing on a particular job. I have either written the job description for every job I've had, or it's been created for me. So I've never really applied for a job and it's just been that job and I've done that job. So I think that's really important. The second thing I would say is, whenever you have an opportunity to learn how to hire people, take that. I always wasn't really interested in that, but you find yourself needing to hire or interview people and bring people in to a team much earlier than you think you will. And it's a really good skill to have, so that you can build a great team, because the second biggest thing after what you do is who you do it with. So you really want to have that in. My other big thing, and it's something I'm really passionate about, is have really good time management and processes for things. And if those words make you feel like, oh, Like that's even why you should have it. So whether it's have a process around keeping your inbox at zero, and there's loads of those online that you can follow, or have a process for your action items and things like that. And the more that you get into that routine, the easier your life will be. And I think if you're organized or force yourself to be organized, your career will be full of much more ease. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, I really resonated with what you said. Like the first thing, like don't kind of coop yourself into what you want to do. Like
Mhm.
there's going to be so much room of flexibility, at least in technology and in the entirety of STEM. Like you can always like change what your role is going to be, or because once you're in that role, there's like so much room for improvement. But
Mhm.
also about the time management. That is something very important, regardless of where you are, what age you are. It's really important to have these types of skills because everything's changing and you just got to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And to that best version of yourself, like, I think I said the number one thing is what you do, and the second is who you do it with. Actually, the number one thing is making sure you're healthy, like mentally, physically, whatever that is. That number one thing is yourself, and making sure that you're looking after yourself, and time management fits into that, like if your inbox is a mess and your to-do list is a mess, I can guarantee you up here is too. Your head will be a mess. So that's something to kind of factor into.
Yeah, I mean, I really love that. If your to-do list is a mess, then everything up in your mind is probably also a mess.
Yeah,
So you should probably try, organizing all of that with, your time.
exactly.
And my next question for you is what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Ooh, I think that it's complicated. I'm not saying it's not complicated, and there are really high barriers to entry for a lot of people, but I think people get intimidated. I don't even know if that's a myth, but I think people get intimidated by technology, or as well by communications and how fast things are moving, and basically everything in technology and everything in communications, it's all the same stuff, just done in a different way, right? So people right now are freaking out about AI, right? And I think there's a lot of things we need to be cautious about and learn about, but at the end of the day, the thing that's really driving everything is human use, right? So everyone got freaked out when emails came in. Everyone got freaked out when, Teslas were on the road, and still a little bit freaked out by Teslas on the road. But at the end of the day, it's just all about how they're used and what kind of barriers we put around them and contain them. So I think things are less scary than they need to be. Everything's a double-edged sword. Like Instagram, great, I can connect with my friends back home. Bad because I'm scrolling all day, right? So everything, it's just about balance and finding that. So I think it's a little, if people are intimidated by it, or intimidated because like they think it's very male dominated or things like that, I'm not saying it's not, but it doesn't have to be the big scary thing if you just put yourself out there and try.
Yeah, I mean, STEM is a beautiful and friendly place to be in. I mean,
Mm.
AI is just a testament to how cool STEM is because that's actually in the industry. So you should definitely check it out. But I feel like there's like a lot of intimidation between AI, like, oh my gosh, is machine learning going to be powering everything, or are humans just going to have no place in society? But there's actually a really amazing benefit with AI because, it can take a huge load off of humans, but there are so many different benefits that I feel like we kind of mask over because of how scary it might be. But that's kind of, as you said, a double-edged sword. There are the cons, but there's also the pros with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think technology amplifies human nature, the good and the bad, right? So you see like on Instagram all the bad scary stuff, and then you've got things like the good news movement, and you see all the great things that are done. And you're like, okay, there you go. So it's an amplification. It's a different way of doing things, and that's really it.
Yeah, and everything kind of has this double-edged sword, but look at how we've progressed as society. If something bad happens, then we still move away from it. So
Mhm.
it'll pass.
Yeah.
And my next question for you is if you could step into my shoes or your younger self, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think for me, I'm so in awe and admire you so much that I'm like, I think you're doing great. No worries. Um, I think I'd ask myself, is there more fun I could be having? I think for me, around your age, I was very, very serious. And that has translated into my adult life. So I don't like play as much as I should, whether that's I'm really focused on my hobbies right now. So paint, I've got my little paint desk here, but painting, I'm really into ceramics and pottery right now. So I just got my first kiln and I'm making my own stuff and I'm loving it. So yeah, I think am I having enough fun with what I'm doing? Like, it's really good to be goal oriented and to have things that you're working on and have, ambitious stuff, but have fun with it along the way, because I think that's really, really important. And I think it's important for mental health as well, is to have fun and playtime. And, I think from my perspective, people around my age, anyone I talk to who is particularly the eldest girl in the family or a only girl in the family, there was a lot of pressure on us. I don't know if it's the same for your generation, but to do well and to prove ourselves. And that translated as overstudying and overworking. And then when I got to work, that would translate as 60, 70-hour weeks. And, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. No worries. I have no plans on Friday night. So I think it's like, where are your boundaries? Where do you want to have fun? I think the generation below me is much better at it. You hear a lot of complaints about, Gen Z not wanting to work or setting boundaries. I'm like, no, they're just being healthy. Like, let them be, they're just doing what we wish we could do. So I think that's the question I would ask is, am I having fun?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the youngest child, so I didn't really have to go through that struggle.
Nice.
My sister has.
Nice.
But I mean, just being okay with what you're doing, like, sure, you could be goal oriented and you could be diligent with what you're doing, but just knowing when it's okay to take a break and like deplug from what you're actually doing. Like for you, it's painting and, you're really passionate about it. Just when you talk about it, you have a huge smile on your face.
Mm.
But, finding that type of place where you can kind of get away from work and get away from what you're doing, your day-to-day activities, and kind of just being yourself, that's something that you should probably find anytime you can.
Yeah. And don't turn it into a have to do, turn it into a get to do. Because
Yes.
that's my other thing. I'm like trying to optimize. I'm like, okay, so I have to make this by this time so that I can do it. And it's like, no, I get to make this. I get to do that, and the same it's work, right? It's not, I have to do this one presentation. It's I get to. How great is that? If I talked to myself 10 years ago, I'd be like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's that mindset. Like instead of I have to do or should do, it's I get to do or I can do. It's like that shift.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps a lot.
And what are the best resources slash books that have helped you find your career path?
Ooh, the best one of my favorite things to do every single year is to listen to a YouTube video by Randy Pausch, Pauschsch, I believe, on time management. Randy Pausch was a lecturer at Carnegie Mellon. He also worked a lot with Disney Imagineering, and he unfortunately got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And he recorded something called two different things there, but they were based on this last lecture. If a lecturer had to give their last lecture, what would it be on? And so he did two. One was really achieving your childhood dreams, which is great, and this other one on time management. And he just has all of these different systems in life, and it's really, really great. He was like, my time is limited. I want to spend it with my family. And these are all the things I do. And this is how I set boundaries. This is how I look after my email inbox. This is how I, you can tell I'm really passionate about that one. He like how he deals with things on his desk, how him and his wife had a filing system, and then they didn't have arguments over where did you put that thing, because it went in the filing system and they could always find it. And so I think that was really, really good for me. I found that, I think the year he did it, and I've listened to it probably every year since. Other resources, I think there's just been so many amazing people. Sue Black, who founded Tech Mums, she is incredible, and following her stuff and listening to her talks is amazing. Really, really great. And yeah, finding mentors has been really important for me. I've been blessed with having so many really wonderful, usually female bosses, and clients, and they've just been amazing at helping me grow. Also, because I'm a writer, I really recommend Anne Lamo's Bird by Bird as a book. I think it's really good. I think it's really good for anyone who wants to hone their writing skills. I think the copy editor's handbook is very good too. This is really boring, I'm sure. Sorry. But yeah, those kind of things are really great. And I also just I love finding kids who teach stuff online. So if you're wanting to learn a new language, like look up, I think his name is Zach. I'll double check. But there's a young kid, I don't know how old he is, maybe like 6 or 7, and he teaches Python. Like it's like little bits like that. So it's like learning from kids is really great because they explain things to people who don't have any background in stuff. So if I ever wanted to learn a new coding language, I would go online and look at ones for teenagers or for like actual kids, like little ones, and follow that. I always find that really interesting. And really they explain things so well.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said about the video. I mean, I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Mhm.
But also a really fun trick that I do is whenever I have to search something up online, I just search up whatever it is for kids because the actual definition is gonna be some type of encyclopedic thing. It's gonna be like just for adults, and I can't read that because it has so much big like terminologies. But anything for kids has probably been written by a teenager, and it's very easy to decipher and learn.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much easier to learn. And it's fun. It's always funner. Adults have a way of making things boring, or serious. And that's what really gets me at the minute is I'm just seeing so many attempts to like elevate language and make it really fancy and formal. And people don't need that. They don't need fancy and formal. You're not speaking to the UN. You're speaking to Bob down the street who wants to learn something. Give
Yeah.
Bob what he needs.
Literally. I mean, there's just so many big words and I just don't know what they mean, even though it's just a synonym for another word. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you think is a vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
Ooh. So mentors have been really, really important to me. I think that's a big one. But in terms of like a before and after, I think going out on my own was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done and one of the best things I've ever done. And it gave me a lot more autonomy over how I spend my time. And that's something that's very, very important to me. And my life before that, I was very, very unhealthy. I was very stressed. Like I would get stressed out about very small things. And I wasn't looking after myself. Like I wasn't doing the good things I do now, like, meditating, going for walks, journaling, all of that kind of stuff. So I think for me, when I went out on my own, I then had to take more personal responsibility for myself. And it is scary, but it's one of those things that I don't think I would ever go back and say, don't do that. Because you learn so much about yourself. I was able to put myself first, structure my days the way I wanted to structure my days. And don't get me wrong, there are client calls coming up that are 5:30 in the morning. So that does happen. But being able to treat yourself like a client, I think is really important. So yeah, I think not being scared to kind of make that leap and go out on your own is really a good one to try. You can always go back. It's not like the end of the world. But that was a really wonderful thing. And afterwards, life just got a lot brighter and more vibrant for me, which was really important.
I love what you said, treat yourself like a client, because
Mm.
typically we put others' needs before us, or instead we kind of just squash down what we actually need and think about, oh, did I meet this deadline? But I feel like once you get like too focused into something, like you're too goal oriented, if you don't finish that specific goal, then your whole life is in shambles. But just knowing that you should treat yourself as a client and kind of put your needs before what your goal actually needs, then it's going to be so much more healthy.
Yeah, yeah. You sometimes have to treat yourself like you're the boss, because you are the boss. You're the boss of your own brain, the boss of your own life. So, but you do have to be like, oh, the boss said that I needed to go for a walk at lunch today, or the boss said that I needed to spend an hour reading this week on a topic that I really want to learn about. So, like myself, like I'm putting myself through a UCLA extension course right now, because there was a goal I had, and I knew that if I did it myself, the boss wasn't going to show up for work. So by having a weekly class where I have to hand in, I'm doing a business plan, I have to hand in those pieces and someone has to look at it. I've essentially made that situation a client for me. So I'm showing up every week, I'm delivering the stuff, I'm doing the reading. Because sometimes if you leave it to your own devices and there's no accountability, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And it's, 4 months later. So
Yeah, I mean, totally. Just like if you can't do something, then try modeling the behavior or the environment that if you were originally to do something. Like for me as a student, I always have to get my school stuff in. But, the second I go home and I have to think about my extracurriculars, I'm too exhausted to think about it. But kind of turning that kind of moment into a school type of moment where I have to do this, or instead of having to do it, I get to do it. And kind of changing this environment to be more conducive for that type of behavior that actually pushes me to actually wanting to do it.
yeah, exactly. And I think reflecting afterwards when you do the thing, oh, that was really good. I feel really great. So next time when I'm not really feeling it, like I play tennis and we've been taking tennis lessons. I can tell you every single Monday night when that comes along, if you ask me if I want to go play tennis, do I? No. Every time when I come back, I'm like, that was amazing, So it is just, you gotta treat yourself right.
Yeah, definitely treat yourself right. And because we have some additional time, my question for you is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career path?
Mm, how to set better boundaries. I wish I had known that. I mean, it's a really hard one because you want to impress people, right? But I think setting boundaries is a really important one for starting out. Um, I just wish I knew it would all be okay. Like, and you always know that it will be okay, but I think I had a lot of worry about, oh, what am I going to do? What's my job going to be? And I've just been blessed by amazing people around me who have, given me links to clients or, like have been like, hey, by the way, did you want to do this course? And so I think just kind of having a greater sense of Zen, like, would have been nice. I'm just trying to think of other things. I think those would be my top ones, like I think being a little clearer on what I wanted with my free time as well would be good. What hobbies do I want? Because I was very, very work focused, So I tend to, whenever I get into something, is focus on it very, very intently. So yeah, just to be able to go, oh, I can be multi-passionate. There's actually an amazing YouTube video I would recommend people watch, especially if they're thinking about designing a career. So kind of like the age you are now. And it is Mary for Leo. And she has something called B School. Her Instagram's awesome, but she has a talk called the how to create unstoppable success. And it's a really great talk. It's on YouTube. It's wonderful. But she always talks about how everything is figure outable and how you can figure out everything. But her big thing is she used to get upset about trying to say what her job was because she had so many different little things and she'd get really insecure. And so she came up with this term that she is a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And I think that's really good. And I think knowing that you can be a multi-passionate person, even if it's not an entrepreneur, you could be a multi-passionate employee, right? But you could be an employee and an entrepreneur, but knowing that you don't have to have one passion, like you can love STEM and STEM can be your thing. And then also, you can have another hobby that you equally love and want to pour your life into, or STEM can be your hobby. That's the other thing too. It doesn't have to be a job. You don't have to monetize everything, So yeah, I think that would be mine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. I'm interested in both computer science and economics. So there's like that bridge between STEM and the humanities and, money. But just also, I really loved what you said that a lot of people know that it's okay, but not a lot of people kind of take that into mind because often you're like, oh, okay, I know that it's going to be okay, but I keep stressing out about something. But just, just knowing like permanently, like it's going to be okay regardless of where you are and just knowing that you can get through it whatever struggle you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just knowing and like really knowing it deep, you know?
Yeah. And my last question for you is how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
I I'm taking this UCLA extension course. That's been really important. And I've been taking various different classes to wherever I think I need writing for marketing or business ethics or this business plan at the minute. So I think that has been really important for me, and I've been very fortunate to be able to do it. I also keep up with podcasts and kind of listen into things like that. Another thing I love to do is meet up with friends who work in like I've worked with before and now work somewhere else to find out what they're doing. That's always really important because you learn so many really interesting things. I also love audiobooks. So at the minute I'm listening to Ray Dalio's Principles. It's a little hard to listen to. If you like the economic side, you'll love it. But it's principles for work and life and how to make like easier decisions. Well, hard decisions easier, I suppose. But that's been really, really, really helpful. I'm listening to the holistic psychologist, how to do the work as well at the same time. So going between the two. But I think if you can listen to audiobooks, go for walks or on long drives. I have about a 60-minute drive to class every Tuesday night. So that's my audiobook time. Then I go there, do the business class, and then on the way home, because there's no traffic and it's LA, it's 30 minutes and I get the other bit. So yeah, I think those things are good. I think as long as you always have a growth mindset and keep learning, that's really good. And take any like learning opportunities you get, especially if you're in a role and they give you like an opportunity to go learn something, even if you think it sounds kind of stupid, but go do it and see. You might just meet someone who makes it worthwhile.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for being here today. Before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
Do whatever makes you feel happy. Like whatever, if that's STEM as a hobby, STEM as a career, do whatever makes yourself feel happy, like that kind of thing. And then I think the other thing is not to be afraid to put yourself out there. They always say, if you don't ask, you won't know. I think that's really important, and getting into the practice of asking things is really good too. So just go for things, and if it doesn't work out, go for something else. So yeah, be happy and do things. There you go. There's a mantra motto for you.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for being here. I love talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
And here are my 3 cents on the episode with Lauren. 1. Career paths can evolve. Lauren's career path shows that it's not always necessary to have a fixed career goal in mind. She started with an interest in communication and politics, but ended up working in research organizations, tech companies, and as a CEO of a nonprofit. Her journey demonstrates that being open to new opportunities and adapting to changing circumstances can lead to unexpected and fulfilling career paths. 2. The importance of hiring and building a team. Lauren emphasizes the value of hiring and building a strong team. She views interviewing as a valuable skill and recognizes that people you work with can have a significant impact on your success. Building a capable and cohesive team is crucial for achieving goals and navigating challenges effectively. And 3, technology accessible and adaptable. Lauren debunks the myth that technology is complicated and intimidating. She believes that technology and communication are driven by human use and that everything in technology can be understood and used in different ways. Technology is a tool that amplifies humans' nature, both the good and the bad. By understanding this perspective, one can approach technology with confidence and adapt it to their needs and goals. Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Dito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!